Hi guys, Ren here and welcome to the workshop. If you watch my channel, then you probably know that I'm quite a big proponent of one-by drivetrains, and I use them basically on all my bikes. Cross bike, road bike, for most of the season anyway, apart from those very hilly races. Mountain bike, of course, that's kind of natural. And also my time trial bike, which currently isn't here because it's upstairs on the trainer. So right now that I've got a little bit into the world of mountain biking again, I started thinking about, well, 12 speed, 1x12 speed is kind of the norm really nowadays for mountain biking, at least as long as we're talking about the SRAM Eagle group sets. So after riding quite a bit on this, I really thought about, well, is 1x12 all we're ever going to need for all the disciplines? And I have to say, with this particular setup, if you have your chainring size correctly chosen, then basically the 10 to 50 cassette is going to cover most of the riding. Well, in my case, all of the riding really, because I've got a 34 on the front, which is kind of standard, not too big, not too small, for this type of bike anyway. And I've used my bottom gears or my 10-tooth cog quite regularly. I've used my 50-tooth cog quite regularly, although not excessively. So I can say that the gear range definitely is there when where you need it, and I never felt that I either needed a taller gear or a shorter gear. Of course, this being a mountain bike makes that a little bit easier. Why is that? You never really have the smooth cadence and the cadence changes like on the road, for example, and also you don't really need your gears to be super low to allow for a high cadence on the very steep climbs, because those very steep climbs usually aren't paved and have a loose surface, and if you were to ride that at a high cadence, you would just spin out. So even those steep walls, I would say at over 25% or even more, I don't exactly know what the grades of road are, but there are definitely climbs where you have to do, you know, 350, 400 watts just to get up those pitches in the lowest gear, but your cadence is just around 70, and that's exactly what you need, because that way you can feel that traction of the rear wheel, unlike at a higher cadence. So for mountain biking, this is definitely good enough, and I can't find any faults with it so far. And also the gearing steps, some might argue that a 2x still has a place on a mountain bike because of the smaller steps in the gears. Well, for me, for the reasons I mentioned just a couple of seconds ago, the steps aren't very important, you know. I can say that they are pretty adequate to what mountain biking is, and yeah, again, no real need for a smooth cadence changes. So yeah, I'm perfectly happy with that. And I can say, if we qualify 1x and 1x12 specifically for mountain biking, then if we were to say that it's completely usable in all circumstances, or just partially usable in some areas, or not usable at all, I think it's the first one. Then talking about the road side of things, well, it's a bit different here, because yeah, mainly because of the smoother terrain and higher speeds and the smoother cadence that goes with it. So 70 cadence on the road, it feels okay on a mountain bike when you're grinding up those steep bits, but it's really not okay on the road. And since we don't have proper 1x12 on the road it just makes it a little bit worse. Although still I have to say I've used this 1x12 setup, not even a super wide range cassette at the back. This is basically just a regular double setup with the little ring omitted, because yeah, that's what it is. And still, at least where I live, it's perfectly usable for, well, 100% of the roads that I'm riding here in the area. And as for the races that I've done, around 60 or even more % of those, I think apart from 2 or 3, all are very much doable and comfortably doable with this kind of gearing. So this is a 54 in front, 1132 at the back, as I've said, and there are no real issues. In this setup you can't really talk about having too much gaps because it's a standard cassette you'd use in a double setup. And yeah, this doesn't qualify for all-round use, but it's still qualifies for specialist use, I would say. And on the road, I think even if it was 1x12, because the speed range is so low and you need a smooth cadence, I still think that 1x12 wouldn't be enough. But on the other hand, rotor that now have the 1x13 option, I think that's pretty much or very close to the holy grail that I would think, that has enough range to be a category 1, so all round usable without thinking about it, and also have the right gearing steps and the right range, because well, this is perfectly usable, but you need to think about the course beforehand and you need to prepare for it. Is this going to be good enough or no? With the double setup, of course, you don't really think about that, and on a mountain bike you don't really think about that either. So on the road I think we need to wait until 1x13 becomes a thing to have a full-blown 1x setup that's all-round usable. Then talking about the cross bike here, right now it has road wheels on it, but don't let that confuse you. This is a full-on cyclocross race bike, and I think here, well, on the road wheels I have this 9-36 wide range cassette. That's what I use when I mess about with it on the road. For cross racing I use a standard 1132 red cassette with a 42 up front, and yeah, it's 1x11 of course, SRAM Force 1. In cross I think you don't even need those 11 gears, because well, the thing I found here is, well, on most cross courses you're not going to go very fast, definitely not faster than 40k for example, so you don't need that lower end of the cassette even with just a 42 tooth ring, and you don't really need the upper end of the cassette either, because at that point when you have a super small gear, very tough terrain, then in some cases you're better off running. And again, you don't even have that smooth cadence as on the road, so effectively what you end up using is just 3 or 4 gears in the middle of the cassette. So here it's again a category 1 from my qualification that I just made up. So it's all around usable, you don't really need to think about that. And in fact you can have a very narrow gear range. Probably even an 1128 cassette would do for cross racing, at least in my experience. So yeah, it's pretty much, I think, even overkill, we might say. And then for time trialing, it's pretty much the same as on the road. You really do need to know the course, although I've done all my time trials this year with a 1x, and in fact a huge 58-tooth chainring. So if you know your courses, you can feel free to use that, and you have the benefit of lower weight, lower drag, and one less thing to think about. Okay, so this pretty much sums up my experiences and thoughts about 1x and 12 speed. 11 speed as well. So yeah, I think apart from road racing, we're pretty much dulled with the 1x setups. We'll see what the future holds. Okay, so that's all of my rant today. If you want to know more about the actual bikes and how they are set up, then don't forget to tune into the channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.